researcher at Turin Labs, and she's gonna please come. Please. She's gonna share her insights about uh, her user design, user research with respect to human behavior in design. And then I have Indranil sir. Please, sir, Mr. Indranil Garai. He's the founder and principal associate of IGA. He's also the joint director of Pune Biennale Foundation and the core committee member at Art Mandai. He's won various awards and recognitions for his work across government projects and sculptural projects across the world. We welcome you, sir. And I'm going to be moderating this panel. You guys already know me, so I'm not going to introduce myself, but I'm Vandita. And I'm going to quickly straight jump into some questions. One question that I want to start with you, sir, is I read on your Instagram, sorry, on your WhatsApp, your status, uh, and I want to sort of like talk about that a little bit because that was very interesting. As it is, so it says happy for no reason. So, because you're talking about human behavior in design, and I have read your work, I mean, I'm sure this reflects in your work, this statement that you made. So, I would like you to sort of like start with that, talk about that, why have you kept that status, and how does that kind of sort of that happiness reflect in your, in your design?
Hi, very good afternoon, everyone. Pleasant sunny afternoon. Happy for no reason is not a status. It's the being actually. So being happy is not an extra effort. Being happy is being happy. So you don't need a reason to be happy. You're born happy, and you just continue being happy. So, I mean, actually, it takes an effort to be sad. It doesn't take an effort to be happy. You're always happy. बाप माँ तो पीट पीट के रुलाते हैं ना. Otherwise, you're happy. And what was your part with the human behavior?
If you could talk a little bit about the work that you've done with respect to sculpture especially, and what is your core sort of ideology when you're building sculptures? What is your thought process of what is the right from the imagination to what is the message maybe you're trying to give with your sculptures? How does that process reflect?
So basically us as a team, we are sculptors. We operate with two studios, one in Pune, one in Bangalore, and what we do is a public art. We do large-scale sculpture projects, mural projects, which is in the public domain. So our primary role with art remains that we kind of reflect ourselves with the environment that we are present in. Okay, so we work with multiple kind of spaces. We work with residential spaces, commercial spaces, institutional spaces, private homes, various kinds of spaces. So the sculptures kind of, I would say, like sing to the tune of the spaces. Okay, see, the thing is that public art shoulders a lot more responsibility than artworks that are done for the studio space. Okay, artists in general are selfish, and they do artwork. I'm an artist myself, so I'm kind of selfish in that way, where I create art for myself. Okay, now that art, if required, can be shown to someone on the in a gallery space or in an online space or something, or I may decide not to show, and I'll just leave it the way it is with me in my studio. When required, and when I am kind of addressing a public space, then it becomes a responsibility of the artist and the art to kind of connect with the space and not stand there like a sore thumb. So therefore, the selection of material, the selection of design, color, form, everything becomes important. It plays a important role to be present responsibly in the space. So what you see in a mall space will not be similar to what you see in a school. What you see in a school will not be same what you see in a hospital. Okay, the moods are different, the people are different, the people interacting with are different, the purpose is different. So therefore, the language of the art, the need of the art, the requirement of the art has to change.
I have a question for you also, Chandra. I mean, so you do the prior part of it also, where you're doing a lot of research in terms of how uh, what a space needs or what the people interacting with that space needs. So can you share a little bit about that? I mean, how that process is, and then we'll jump into the questions. Thanks for asking that, Vandana, and I think super well articulated by Indranil sir here. Um, what I'd like to first bring out is there's a difference between design and art. And design is mostly when you're designing to a larger target audience and you know who your target audience is, right? Whereas art, like he said, it can be sometimes very selfish or it can be centered to one person. So what we do at Turian is the whole process before a designer can get to even design something. And largely we work with technological products, and it's very different from tangible design. Although I studied it for 4 years of my life, it's very different from that. Um, so just another thing that I'd like to bring out is that society, like you said, human behavior, right? Each kind of person who belongs to different kinds of segments of society interacts with art or design differently. And what we do is basically distill the mental models behind the way, why they behave the way they do, right? Trying to find out the very core reason as to why they would like or prefer a particular design solution. And after that, we have a whole process where we do this inciting of the information that we get, and then provide with some sort of provocative solutions. They are not solutions, we call them how might we's. I'm pretty sure design students would know, how we frame how might we's. And the core, idea behind that is how is the what you're going to do and how you're going to go about solving something. Might is it's not the only solution. There are multiple solutions targeting different kinds of target audience, and how do we pose these kind of solutions. So yeah, that's basically what I do, um, trying to come out with these provocative solutions through research, and we provide the space for a designer or an engineer to go about making something like this. So I mean, we both spoke about how the research part, understanding the landscape is very important before you actually do the design or do the art, and actually sort of try to interact with the space. So my question is that how do you segregate, because I mean, you get so many different kind of people interacting with like a similar space, right? So like you mentioned in office, there are like people coming from different backgrounds, different challenges, different kind of moods every day. So how do you sort of like sail through that segregation and then create something which is going to then connect everyone? Like how do you sort of how that process works?
So for us, when we are doing sculpture, especially sculpture is see the uh, sculpture in a project is absolutely at the back end of things. That's not really necessary. It's a visual thing. It's something that adds aesthetics to the space. Uh, Aesthetics is something that is definitely important yet not necessary. So designing and positioning an aesthetic piece is of utmost importance because it kind of defines the space, It kind of builds your mood. It kinds of helps you start your day. It helps you end your day. Things like that. So for us, we don't need to address an individual coming to the space. Rather, we need to help the space in general. Okay. So, for example, an office space is a space that has a purpose. Uh, a community space, for example, a residential, a gated community, is a space with another purpose. So, in the gated community, everyone comes back home, and in an office space, everyone goes to work. So, the general purpose there remains the same. So, we kind of address to that in totality. And depending on the kind, so let's say we are working in an office space, and the office could be in an urban situation, could be in a semi-rural, semi-urban kind of a situation, and say for example, here, this high street has a lot of glass, very contemporary buildings, and things like that. At the corner of High Street, on the right side, we have very recently installed a large sculpture. You've seen that? Circles. Huh? So, yeah. So now those were kind of, the idea was to introduce something which is in terms of a contrast to the material that is available. That is palette. The general palette is shiny and thin. We chose cotton steel, which is a contrast to that. So design can can complement in both ways. Either go with the material and the character of the space, or kind of contradict it with color or material and yet look nice.
But I think one thing, since you mentioned the sculpture, when I saw it, I was with my kids, and I think one thing that sculptures definitely do is they induce a lot of curiosity. What was the artist thinking? Why did they do this? Does this have a meaning? What can that meaning be? And the interesting part is that everybody can take their own story. I mean, like you said, that sculpture is just like the design end of things. For me, I think sculptures are a lot more than that. I think they sort of give a story to everyone the way they want to sort of narrate the story to themselves. I think it's very interesting, and I would probably share what stories we created that day with you. Um, which sort of like I also want to like sort of understand from you that when you do sort of like research work, obviously, like I said to him, like it's the same space, but people are different. So how do you sort of like bring that together and accomplish or sort of achieve that idea of that, hey, we're getting this process set, and this is going to cumulatively help everyone, no matter what backgrounds or what kind of different kind of things that they come from. So how do you guys achieve that? Okay, so I think I'd like to maybe explain this with an example. Now, let's take sustainability, which is the talk of the town right now, right? So, talking about sustainability, let's look at different kinds of classes within society that we have, different kinds of segments again, right? Let's say an upper middle class to a slightly more advanced upper class versus somebody who is just shifting from poverty to a middle class, right? Right now, India is all about rising middle class. Incomes are rising right now. So, if we talk about both of them and the way they would react with sustainability, there is a consumption curve that we need to take care of. The way we look at sustainability right now is not the same way a person who is coming in from poverty to middle class would look at it, right? They need to undergo that entire change of the consumption curve and reach a point where they think that, okay, I need to go back to my tradition. Right now, it's all about going back to tradition. And with India, I feel like all of us are inherently sustainable. It's just about where you're placed in that consumption chart, right? So yeah, this is kind of how we segment the people who are interacting with the design we're testing or that we're planning to build or have an idea for, and try to categorize their behaviors and see where exactly they're coming from. What is their very core belief, and why is that impacting the way they're behaving? So yeah. This is my favorite question of the lot. In your opinion, does design influence people or do people influence design?
I mean, I'll be clever if I say both, but it doesn't happen like that for me. Uh, the space has to, for us, the the space, the material, the architecture defines this design for us. So I think that should sum it. No use stretching it more.
So I mean, but then that does primarily mean that you are obviously.
I mean, since you are the person behind it who's studying those materials or who's studying that place or who's sort of gaining a perspective, so I mean, you are influencing that setup through your design. I mean, yes, the design is influencing people, but then I think because you're doing a lot of work, research work in terms of, hey, what will, like you mentioned, that, it could be contradictory, it could be absolutely in sync. So there's a lot of, homework also that has to be done in terms of, hey, what kind of design you want to put up. So, I mean, I think what you're saying or what I can take from you is that yes, we're influencing the design, uh, but to influence the people further is how it's sort of shaping up.
Yeah, that is but natural. You have a space and you put something, it says something, it does something, it affects the surrounding. But but when we are creating, when we are specifically designing public art, what happens is that it's not a piece of art that is existing in a gallery and it has been bought and put into a space. No, it's not like that. It's the space is already there. As a designer, I am adding value to the space in a very organized and planned way. So the form, the shape, the texture, the color is planned, very very well planned. It is not it has just not grown, it is just not fallen from somewhere, and it has been planned. So once that happens, so the space has influenced the design. Once the design is there, then probably if the design is strong enough, it has its opportunity to influence the surrounding.
Your take on that.
I was.
I was just having a conversation with somebody from my workplace, and we posed the question: does Bollywood influence people or people influence Bollywood? Right, the take that we see on films. So, I think it's just about interdependence. It's a cycle. Uh, it's always one and the other. So, yeah. Okay, thank you. And I also want to understand, like, how especially in your work, being a sculpture artist is not easy. It takes, and the kind of work that you've done and what you've built with your work is years of work. It's not something that is just like shot to fame overnight. So how does someone sort of look at something so unconventional and build into something so meaningful? I would really want you to share with the audience, like, what kind of resilience or what kind of persistence did it take for this journey to sort of occur for you?
Yeah, I am born from an artist family. Okay. Now, I would say that I was born with a ball of clay in my mouth. So, sculpture is all I know how to do, and scale has always interested me. Large size is what I like to do, and that automatically kind of connected with architecture. Whenever I talk about size in that way, it automatically is placed in a way, in a space where people are interacting with it, uh, kids are playing with it, you see people sitting on it, and I think that's what makes the sculpture complete for me. And then I think I had a small business DNA which helped me set it up into a way that is profitable for me and my team. That is important. And then a bit of luck.
Yeah, I mean, same question sort of in a way to you. Like, how did you mentioned that you've been into art for a good amount of time. So taking this career shift, not a career shift, but yeah, sort of like, from a hands-on experience to more sort of like,
Like
very
I get
user
you.
based, and very interacting with the customers or the people. How did that shift happen, and how is it like sort of now going forward?
Uh, I think compared to Sir's experience, I have a long way to go, very long way to go. But I started off with art as just, I used to be very into painting, expressing myself through that, versus then I shifted it to communication design, trying to get into the space of brands and how they come about. And that inherently struck a chord. Okay, who's thinking of this, right? And how do you know that something that you create is going to work in the market? So that's where brand strategy came into place. And eventually, brand strategy and user research, all of it is inherently very core to users and their behavior. So that's just my journey till now. So yeah, long way to go.
I have just two more questions before I open it to the audience. I have a very interesting question for you, sir. Has it ever happened that somebody has come to you, whether it's the client himself or their team or general public, who's come and given you sort of a feedback or if their understanding is on the art piece that they saw, and that was not exactly what I mean the thought process that you also had, and then how do you like sort of sync it in, like sync between the two opinions or two kind of thought processes, and then how do you sort of interact with the people who are actually experiencing it, not just the client, but their team, or if it's in a public place and a lot of people seeing it. So how do you sort of interact with them when your idea was very different about the sculpture from what they are actually sort of perceiving it? Does that kind of conversation ever happen?
Yeah, that happens every day, actually. And especially when we are working with public spaces, uh, my thought is very relevant. Once the sculpture is installed, uh, the people who are there become important. Their thoughts, how they connect with it, is what remains and what is important. Even the sculpture becomes less important. The people, a couple of years back, we had installed a very large piece at Ishanya, now Creativity. It had a 26 feet stainless steel sculpture. The sculpture was designed uh, with a couple of abstract forms that were inspired by the building. No, the building was designed by Kamal Malik. So, when I was designing with Kamal, we spoke about the forms, the cantilever positions, and things like that. And somehow there, we wanted to add little fun to the sculpture. It was a reflective stainless steel sculpture. I don't know if you all have seen it. It was there before the lockdown, and then some changes are happening, so they've kind of removed it and it will come back again. Now, so we did a small bit of fire, water kind of an element around the sculpture, and somebody felt that it's a Ganpati. So बोला बहुत अच्छा modern गणपति हुआ है. So I thought I'd leave it to that. And so I mean, in India में गणपति तो कुछ भी बन सकता है ना. So that became a गणपति and I was quite happy.
Now, obviously, I mean, my next question was what is more important, customer experience or design? And I think you've already answered that with your latest recent remark. And I think before I quickly open it to the audience for a Q&A, I just have one last question from both of you. Is one, how do you like in the field of, it's still not a very conventional field to be an artist or uh, you know be a sculpture artist, right? So what do you think people should sort of like, if they are interested in this, if they want to pursue this full time, what would be your sort of, some sharings that you would like people for absolutely couples? Like, what should they be sort of taking care of? What are the things challenges that they could probably face, and how can they overcome that? So if you could just share a few things of that.
Firstly, they they should do course as in a full degree course is very important to, to have a know-how of the field. Education in any field is very, very important. Okay, so you can be a self-taught artist, Hussein was a self-taught artist. So you can be a self-taught artist, but you must know that you have to put in those number of years in your own research or anything and other things to be at par with another student who's spending 4 years, 6 years, graduation, post-graduation, and learning about the field, knowing about the past, the movement, and things like that to prepare yourself first. Secondly, material know-how becomes very, very important if you are wanting to work with large-scale projects. You don't need to do everything with your hands, but you must know everything to get them executed. And do art. You'll be very, very rich. I can.
I agree.
Artists are very rich people. I was in the India Art Fair last week, and we happened to be invited for a special show of the Christie's, the Sotheby's, and the thing which happened at the Oberoi. It took us a while to count the zeros under each painting. And the original Rabindranath, original Endre, original Ara, Souza, many, many. And we were actually counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. So it's good to be an artist.
Well, same question for you. I think UI is more prevalent than UX, is what I have sort of sensed. So, what is your take on, like, is UX really the future of things? Is that something that people should choose as a career option if they're interested in design? So, what's your take on that?
So UI, UX design, and UX research, all three are very different. So I think figuring that difference out and trying to pick which one you would want to go forward with is the first step. User experience research, what we do is, like I said, it's about mental models, it's about untapping or tapping into that very core. And it's not just about, although it is central to what we do, right? It's human behavior and the way users feel about something is inherent or central to what we do, but it's not the only thing. We are also studying how systems around us, indirectly or directly, affect a particular product or any sort of experience, right? This is something we call futures thinking, and I would call UX research as cognitive design, right? So it's about the thought process, it's about pattern making. So I think anybody who wants to step into user experience research will definitely need some training, because it's something that after going through design college, it's something I think most design students would agree that research is something that it's just part of your design process, but do you actually really look into it, right? There is a whole design process within research, and learning that, going through that learning curve, and being absolutely thick-skinned when it comes to feedback, when it comes to presenting this work, and I think there are a lot of people who don't really know about it, and because they don't know about it, they have their opinions and they're very vocal about it. So just trying to be thick-skinned towards it, going through that learning curve, and picking up that skill. It takes some time to pick up the skill. So picking it up and then, delivering.
Great, thank you. Any questions, anybody?
Hi, Chandana. So my question is for you. I have a very close friend who's pursuing a UI UX course right now after his BBA. So now he had some experience in spatial design and graphic design, and now he's pursuing his UI UX for a better career opportunity. So where do you think in India are the career opportunities that are super saturated or very good career opportunities in UI UX? Design in India? What do you think? If you could suggest.
I think right now UI UX is a big game. There's so much scope for it right now. But if this friend of yours, right, UX research is something that they want to do, Turian has their own course, right? Like I said, they have like it's a whole learning process, and it has great scope right now because I mean, everybody's all bigger, larger tech companies are all looking for this perspective, trying to bridge the gap. I think, like Vandita was mentioning, there is a difference between what users perceive and think versus what the clients wish to achieve, right? It's all about bridging that gap. So, yeah, there's great scope for it. So, yeah.
Okay, so like UI UX research is another field, and then actually being a designer, UI and UX. Can you do both the things together?
I think there is definitely knowing UX design helps you with UX research. It makes the whole learning process a lot more simpler. And yeah, of course, that you can do both of them. There's no limit to it. But yeah.
Okay, thanks. I think I've conveyed a message to my friend.
Israel, sir, I have a quick question, a curiosity question. Uh, Not now, I mean, now you are known for your work, and I'm sure processes are a little different now, but when you started off and you probably took your first few government projects and you worked with maybe the PMC or, the big builders, how did you sort of make that through? Because, when you must be, your work is not like out there, it's difficult to convince people that, hey, I would like to do this and I know my work can sort of add on such value. So how did you sort of get through your first large project as a sculptor?
As I said, that I'm not from Pune. I was born in Calcutta. I studied in Shantiniketan. I started my career with Doshi. So he was my mentor. And I moved to Pune. I moved to Pune in the year 2000. So 23 years now, I'm a Puneite. So Pune was a different town then, and all I knew was that I wanted to do large size pieces. And yes, I mean, it did take a lot of convincing. It did take uh, pushing people because, as you said, that it was not there to show that ऐसे हो सकता है या ये अच्छा लगेगा. People will appreciate those who are not there. And unfortunately today, uh, even in the government sector, they don't understand. You we don't do government projects. Okay, we do very less of government projects. In the last 23 years of our company, we've done about 3 government projects only. We do mostly projects in the public domain. The simple reason is that with government project, what happens is that it gets into so much of paperwork and uh, kind of solving the paperwork loop, that the whole idea of the artwork was for a toss. Even today, and though we constant, I work with PMC for the Pune Binale Foundation, and we kind of help them with various development of roads and some facelift, some walls we've done and all. But it's a difficult thing, because there are so many layers to it. There are so many people involved. to convince them to do something which is good for the city, which can become a very prominent, iconic piece in the city. You will see that if you go to Baroda being such a small town, has definitely because of MS University, it has so many wonderful artworks, all over the city. But Pune does not have that, though we have a lot of opportunity. A very interesting example is that G20 happened a couple of the first session happened a couple of months back, and the corporation was unfortunately not able to plan and install artworks which could look nice for the city. They picked up whatever was lying in any of the artist studios and just kind of put it somewhere. There was a meeting that had happened, and I told them that do plan it. This a similar meeting happened years back when the Pune Youth Games was that 2000 Commonwealth, yeah, that happened. So I told them then also that if like a city master plan, if an art master plan can be done for the whole city, there could be better artists involved. It's not. It is never about funds. Funds are always there in every city. There are people who are willing to sponsor things, but uh, but I think with the government system, we have to kind of evolve and change it a little bit and make it in a way that it can help cities grow aesthetically well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I quickly want to just ask if any of our audiences wants to connect with you. What is the best way to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? LinkedIn for Chandana. Okay. And
So for us, you can connect with us on IGA Studios. We are on Instagram. And IGA Studios, you can find us anywhere.
great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being such a lovely audience. Thank you, Chandana, and thank you, sir.